4, chapter 6, 8 of Pentacles. Bruno took Oberon's face with his right hand. He then turned it left and right while he pretended to carefully consider the indecent proposal. He released the childish face from his grasp, and with his left hand he made Oberon spin around to have him display the front and back, and he lifted Oberon's shirt before shaking his head with disapproval. "No, isn't going to work," said Bruno, shaking his head. "Why don't you like about me?" asked Oberon, giving an exaggerated display of grief. "You don't have breath and you have a dick," said Bruno flatly. "Ha ha ha, very funny," said Oberon, extremely deflated. Oberon returned to the dance area to fish, and he didn't have to look long to find a man and a woman willing to satisfy his lustful demon. And Carina looked at the time, and it was almost midnight, and she decided that it was time to go home, and there was the possibility that they might have to entertain Rebecca and her spawns again, and she was going to need a lot of energy to deal with that nonsense. And Rodrigo stayed behind to fool around with a maiden he had picked up. And Carina drove in silence back to her house, and from time to time Bruno would rub his knee. It no longer hurt, but it still felt stiff, and his green eyes were lost in the horizon. And during a red light, she attempted to break the silence. Did you make a new friend?" asked Carina. "Friend is a strong word," said Bruno, "though I did give Carlos my contact information. If he stabs someone, he needs to know where to find me." Bruno was a defense lawyer, and he spent his days downplaying the crimes of petty criminals and vandals. He was still a junior in the law firm, with only 2 years of experience, and his boss didn't trust him to manage anything serious, and in the next red light, she attempted to make small talk again. "Did you have fun playing chess with him?" asked Carina. "Yes," said Bruno, stating a fact. "There's a website called instantchess.com, and have you played there before?" asked Carina. "I tried it for a while, and you can choose your opponent, and most of the players there are novices, and chess is only fun when you play it against a skilled opponent," said Bruno. "Did your grandma teach you how to play chess?" asked Carina. "Yes, she defeated numerous grandmasters, not in official bouts, but at parties. Unlike other homemakers, she chose to spend her idle time homing her mind instead of wasting her brain cells in idle gossip," said Bruno. "And your grandpa?" asked Carina. "A drunken brute who passed on his affected genes to the creature who calls himself my father. The least said about him the better," said Bruno, dropping the subject altogether. "Was he physically abusive to you?" asked Carina. "For him to abuse me, he had to have been around, and I don't even know why my parents bothered to have me if they didn't have the intention of looking after me. And believe me when I tell you that they are not important. You're better off not knowing them," said Bruno bitterly. An awkward silence followed, and every time Carina attempted to restart the conversation, Bruno's noticeably angry face would dissuade her from speaking to him. And when they arrived at home, the first thing that Bruno did was sit down before jumping into bed. And he closed his eyes to pretend to fall asleep, and if he was sleeping, Carina couldn't bother him with her thoughtless curiosity. And Carina sat down in her rocking chair while facing her boyfriend. She picked up her father's photo that was hanging by her nightstand, and her father too was fond of keeping secrets, and she only found out he was sick when he coughed up blood. And she wondered how many secrets her father had kept from her mother, secrets that he had taken to the grave. And Carina sighed wearily while she readjusted her expectations. A relationship where both partners are brutally honest is only common among children, and she was never going to have with anyone else the bond she used to have with her childhood sweetheart Malik. As one grows older, a person becomes jaded, and they don't trust as easily as they used to. And Carina left the rocking chair, and she gave herself a cat shower before changing into her pajamas. And she embraced Bruno while kissing him on the forehead, and she smiled sadly when she noticed his brow furrowing. He was clearly pretending to be asleep. "Bruno, I'm not going to ask you any more questions. You can share with me whatever you want, as long as you're willing to listen to what I have to say," said Carina. "You promise?" asked Bruno, opening his eyes. "I promise," said Carina. Bruno raised his pinky, and she made a pinky swear with her boyfriend, and she found it so endearing, this childish gesture. And the two were quiet for some time, and Bruno was waiting for Carina to break her promise. Since she wasn't saying anything, he finally spoke about what was bothering him. My knee still hurts, and can you do something about it, Dr. Carina? Asked Bruno. Certainly, said Carina, getting the biofreeze cream. She massaged the knee until the pain numbed enough for Bruno to consolidate sleep, and Carina too slept, though it took her longer to pass out. And the following morning she awoke to the sound of a tiny shoes running about the living room, and she looked at the time, and she could afford to avoid Rebecca for another hour. Around noon, hunger compelled her to leave the bed, and she showered, brushed her teeth, and she changed into her new pajamas, and she smiled when she saw her mother cleaning the dishes. So you finally decided to join us, said Unla dryly. I went to sleep pretty late, said Carina. It doesn't surprise me, said Rebecca, sipping her judgmental tea. Is Bruno still limping? Asked Carina. He seemed to be walking all right, said Unla, and if you're looking for him, he's in the garden playing with his nieces. I don't want to intrude, Mom. And can you make me breakfast? Asked Carina. Certainly, said Unla, starting to cook. Did Bruno work out today? Asked Carina, remembering Bruno's busted knee. Yes, he did, and there's no need to worry. He didn't do any leg stuff, just abdominals and concentration curls. And Rodrigo oversaw his workout to make certain that Bruno didn't needlessly overexert himself, said Unla. I don't know why the boys work out so much, and he's no longer a football player. He doesn't need to push himself anymore. He's probably feeling self-conscious about his looks due to Carina's constant flirtation with other men, said Rebecca. Bruno isn't a possessive boyfriend, said Carina before sipping her orange juice, and she buttered a toast while she waited for breakfast. It is one of his finer qualities, and what you call flirtation, I call a friendly conversation. So you allowing Oberon to press up against you is not a type of flirtation, asked Rebecca. It is called bachata. That is how you dance bachata, said Carina. You can call it whatever you want, but from where I sat, it looked like the prelude to something else, said Rebecca before taking another sip of her judgmental tea. I'm not going to stop dancing bachata just for your peace of mind, Rebecca, said Carina, and she took a bite from her toast to give more weight to her words and body. If you think that is bad, you should see how my daughter dances merengue with Rodrigo, said Ola, bringing out her cell phone. And Rebecca exclaimed after seeing the video, Carina, you degenerate. You dance like that with your first cousin? Yes, we have danced together since I was 3, and just because dances back in your century were stiff and boring doesn't make my dancing depraved, barked Carina. Just let it go, Carina, said Bruno, entering the living room. It is a waste of time to argue with a person that cannot be reasoned with. Why can't Mama be reasoned with? Asked Becky. Because her answer to all your questions is usually, because I say so, said Bruno, doing a terrible mimicry of his older sister's voice. The girls laughed before saying, yes, she certainly does like to say those words a lot. Because I say so. You didn't just come here to undermine my authority, asked Rebecca. I came here to stop a stupid argument, and tell me, Rebecca, what was the end goal of your conversation? Were you hoping for Karen to beg your forgiveness and to promise to change her ways, asked Bruno before pacing the kitchen? And he got like that whenever he was defending a client in court. At the end of the day, entre hombre y mujer, nadie se debe meter. So if you and Carina start fighting, you don't want anyone to interfere, asked Rebecca. Nobody said anything about fighting. I merely wish to highlight the fact that as an outsider looking in, you do not know how I choose to coexist with my girlfriend, said Bruno. And he added, now tell me, girls, do you like the way Carina dances? She's amazing, barked Becky, jumping. I wish I could dance like that too, said Olivia. I could teach you a couple of moves, said Carina, turning to look at her pupils. Rebecca sighed with frustration, and she knew that it was pointless to argue with her brother. Bruno didn't respect her opinions because she only had a high school diploma, and now that she was divorced as well, he now openly talked down to her. Carina finished her breakfast quickly, and she went to the gardens with her pupils and her boyfriend, and for the sake of peace, she decided to teach the girls something from Rebecca's time. Cha-cha-cha. Carina played a mistake for the particular dance style, and she took Bruno's hand before doing a basic display. The girls observed their moves while they tried to mimic them to the best of their abilities. and Carina proceeded to teach the girls the basic moves, and she slowed down her dance to allow the girls to follow along. Rebecca watched the scene while sitting on the porch swing, and Una sat beside her to watch the show. And Rebecca in the end said, "I'm sorry for calling your daughter a degenerate. You are forgiven, my child. Now go in peace, and do not sin again," said Una sarcastically while making the sign of the cross. I brought you a photo album with Bruno's picture," said Rebecca, opening up her large purse. And Ola flipped through it to be polite, and up until the age of 12, all of the photos showed Bruno either alone or with his grandma. And here was a photographic proof of what Bruno had said about his past. For his entire early life, his parents and his sister acted like he didn't exist. "I know what you're thinking," said Rebecca, narrowing her eyes. "Why aren't I in any of the photos? You were a teenager when your brother was born. Teenagers are self-centered by their very nature. It is understandable that you do not want to bond with the unexpected addition to your family," said Unla coolly. "You are close, but not close enough. Bruno went to live with Grandma because his mother suffered from postpartum depression, and it got so bad that it wasn't safe for the baby to live with us," explained Rebecca. Dusk fell, and with it came the promised reprieve. And Rebecca picked up her daughters, and she got inside her rental car to drive back to Miami International Airport. And her daughters had school the following day, and while on the plane ride, she made peace with the fact that Bruno was going to stay in Miami forever. He had a job there in a small apartment. He was self-sufficient. He neither needed nor wanted anything from her. And the problem was that Rebecca needed her brother. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.